The Knock&Talk Show is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share, and subscribe.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Knock&Talk Show. I'm your host, Patrick Faulkner, and this is episode number 14. And today we have guest Mike Blute with us, U.S. Army veteran, law enforcement veteran, and now instructor.
Yes.
Awesome. Mike, welcome to the show, brother.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Why don't you give us an elevator speech? Let everybody know who you are, and then we'll get into some stories.
All right. As you said, my name is Mike. I grew up mostly in Massachusetts. I grew up in Boston, just outside the city. Always wanted to be a cop. Big law enforcement family. Sometimes on either side of the fence of that, but just a drive as a kid, which led me to join the military. Did the military thing with the intent of going back there. To help with my civil service. Massachusetts is a civil service state. The intent was to go back there after the military to get a couple extra points on the civil service police exam and get on a department there. And life happened and changed and ended up in Georgia. I got on a police department in Georgia.
Okay.
I started there after I got out of the military and then moved around a little bit, did a couple cop jobs, and now still cop technically. Working for the Public Safety Training Center in Georgia as a full-time instructor.
Okay. Gypstick, as it's known here.
It is known, yes.
In Georgia. And I did a couple classes there.
Most people have either stayed in the barracks and have a memory, or have one way or the other have driven through the front gate and endured the chow hall or something along the lines of Gypstick that they remember or don't want to talk about.
Right, yeah. So I never spent a night in the dorms. I always stayed in a hotel right outside of the campus.
I usually did too, and I have, and maybe we'll get into that when we get my journey back to Georgia and how I got here and my night in the barracks alone. I'll tell you that story. Probably one of the creepiest stories of my life.
So I've heard.
Yeah,
which is why I never stayed there.
Yeah, it's they've come a long way. The training center has there's TVs and some of them have refrigerators. There's they build premium rooms.
Okay.
So like you get a queen size bed, a big TV, you get cable, with a mini fridge. It's still the same room, but they provide linen now, which they didn't back in our day. It was you showed up, you had to bring a pillow and blanket. Now they give you sheets and a pillow, and it's basics. So, but it's gotten a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's hop in the Wayback Machine.
Okay.
And let's go back to Massachusetts, because I didn't know this, but I didn't realize you were from Massachusetts. So how did you get into the Army?
So I grew up about 12 miles north of Boston. It's a city called Lowell. Coincidentally enough, it's the heroin capital of the world.
Did not know that either.
You got to be famous for something, and that's one of our takes.
Okay.
Ed McMahon is also from there. Johnny Carson's sidekick.
Yeah.
And then Michael Chiklis from the Shield. And then if you've ever seen the movie The Fighter with Mickey Ward, the boxer.
No.
Had Christian Bale as his brother. It was I think one of the Wahlbergs played him, but also from Lowell. But grew up in a city. It's a blue collar boot mill textile kind of town. Always wanted to be in law enforcement. That was my goal, as far as I can remember. Probably 6, 7, 8. It's kind of shaped my life. It was one of those things where I never went with the wrong crowd, because I knew with this decision hurt me to get into law enforcement. And I got to end of high school. I went to a vocational high school, which is you don't see them a lot in Georgia, but it's a trade school basically, but for high school.
Okay.
You don't do a lot of the traditional classes. You don't do languages. It's your core classes: math, English, social studies. But every other week, you do a trade. You learn a trade.
Interesting.
My mother went there, my sister went there. So it was the idea that I wasn't going to go to college, that, I would just do something until I got into the police force. You had to be 21. So I knew I had a 3-year gap I had to fill. So high school ended and I actually got into college. I got accepted in the University of Massachusetts, the local portion of it where I lived in Lowell. And so I did that, figuring that a degree would help me as well.
Sure.
In the law enforcement, but it also was going to fill that gap to turn 21. So that I came pretty close to graduating. Almost, I needed 3 classes basically, and I ran out of money, which was kind of the weird thing. And I'd been putting my way through and got a little bit of help from the family and everything. And I realized that I don't have enough money to keep going, and I want to. And I happened to be downtown Lowell. I don't know what I was doing down there, but the Army recruiting office had a sign in the window that said, "We'll pay back your college loans." And I was like, So I went inside and I started, I already knew the GI Bill, but the GI Bill pays for future college.
Right.
It didn't pay for previous college. But the Army had just started this program called the Army College Loan Repayment Program. And it was for every year of service, you got a third of what you owed in college loans paid back by the military.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. So I don't know if they still have it, but this is 1999. This is when this is going on.
Okay.
Might be the end of 98, beginning of 99. So I went through the process, and, the Army has MPs, military police. And I was like, well, I want to be a cop. That's kind of close. I knew they weren't civilian and military were very, very different. But I went in and talked to them and went through the process. And that just seemed to be the right path. I can get all my college loans paid off, so I'd be debt free when I came out of the military. I'd get some military police experience, and I'd get veterans points. Come back, finish my degree, and now I have veterans cop or degree. I'd get on the force is what
Right.
That was my thought process. So I joined the Army.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to basic?
Fort Leonard, Missouri,
also
known as Fort Lost in the Woods. That's what they call it. And for those who've been there, understand that Fort Leonard Wood's in a small little, I think it's Waynesville, St. Cloud, something like that. It's a 2,500 person town. Okay. The Walmart is the place. Kind of, it's about 2 hours south of St. Louis. Yeah.
Okay.
That was I joined in March of 99, but I didn't go to basic training until August because the Army was transferring their military police school from Alabama, Fort McClellan. They were closing McClellan down.
Okay.
And reopening or adding to Fort Leonard Wood. They were bringing MPs and chemical. So I had to wait that.
Got it.
I think that they call it delayed entry.
Yeah, the DEP program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that time counted for March, which
right.
may tell it to another funny story later on in life. But March started my clock for my 8 years that everybody has to do in the military.
Right.
Which caught me about 2006. So it caught me 7 years later, and I'll tell you that story when we get there. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Every basic training class, no matter the branch, there's always something that sticks out that was either funny or ridiculous. I mean, it's all ridiculous, but anything that stands out in your mind from any of your classmates, anything you got smoked for that stands out?
Well, you actually just triggered a memory there. I have probably 2 memories. And so, like I said, we were the first class. We were the first full class of military police school at Fort Leonard Wood. Some of them moved halfway through, but we started and we're going to finish there. So we were the first. We have that notoriety, I guess, the unit I was in. And so everything was new there. Like all the barracks were older barracks, but they hadn't been lived in a while. So there was a lot of cleaning. But I found it very, very ironic. One of the days we're outside with little e-tool shovels, and we're clearing this grass area outside of the barracks of all the rock and the grass. And we're putting down 4x4 timber, like a rail timber.
Okay.
Around that area. We're making a smoke pit for us to go out and get PT. And I thought it was really ironic that we're building it. So we had
that is pretty fun.
A bunch of privates out there just digging dirt, clearing it all out, because eventually we're going to roll in that dirt in our sweat. And in tears, which I find is very ironic later on. So
yeah,
we forged that path for everybody else.
Any reunions planned?
No. I don't know if I still have some Facebook friends of people I went to basic training with, but I know I went because I was active duty. So when we got our orders, it's a surprise. They give you an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, look, that's where I'm going. And then you have to be like, where am I going? Where is that? So there was several of us from my basic training unit that went to Fort Carson, Colorado, where I went.
Okay.
But I lost touch with most. Nobody went to the same unit as me. So I kind of lost touch with everybody.
Okay. All right. I don't have any contact with anybody from my base. I was the only avionics guy in my group, and then I won't get into the one. We'll move past that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So what was? I'll just say it. So the one guy that I stayed friends with from tech school, which was our version of AIT.
Right.
It ended up being my son's stepfather.
That's a interesting lineage.
Yeah. And we'll just leave it there.
Yeah. Left.
Yeah. Hey, there's Albuquerque. Turning left. What's the second story? You said there were two.
So I think the one thing that sticks out to me in the military, like from basic training, is everybody's vanilla. Everybody looks alike. You're wearing the same uniform, same color underwear, which now triggers a third story. But we had our first, so MPs like infantry and some other job titles in the Army, we're called one station unit training, or OSIT. So your first day of basic training, when you graduate basic training, it's just a Tuesday. And they're like, okay, oh, congratulations, you graduated basic, get on the ground. And then you continue into MP school, and it's 17 weeks consecutively. The infantry does it. I think there's a few of the job titles that do it that way. There's no break. You don't go to another place to do your tech school, AIT, whatever. So our first pass, when we could wear civilian clothes, people started coming out, and you can look at people and kind of get an idea of who they are based on how they dress. Whether they're like an emo or baggy clothes versus tight clothes. But specifically, I think about like the females, because they look the same. They're all wearing BDUs and brown T-shirts and their hair pulled back, and they come on. You're like, who the hell's that?
Yeah,
because there was 50-something females in my unit.
Okay,
in basic training, and you see them, you're like, I don't even know who those people are. You didn't really get to know anybody, anyways.
No,
and then you see these people. I couldn't have picked out if you had put 400 people and be like, pick out the people in your unit. I wouldn't have been able to pick them out if they were in civilian clothes with their hair down and their, makeup on. But at that same token, my personal clothes that I brought with me didn't fit because I had lost so much weight.
Well, okay.
So I had to borrow other stuff, and then I got the belt, and nothing fit. Baggy pants with tennis shoes on or sneakers, and it looked weird because everybody had lost so much weight, so nothing fit. So it was interesting.
I actually gained weight.
My wife said the same thing because she was in the Air Force. She was forced to eat 3 square meals a day, which she didn't before that when she joined the Air Force, where 3 squares a day, actually, I ate a lot of food.
Oh,
but I lost a lot of weight because I only ate 3 meals a day. So I'm more of a grazer.
Got it.
Snacker.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So pushing forward into AIT, you're on the same base, a good number of the same people.
All the same people. Same drill sergeants.
Wow.
Nobody changed. It was from front to back. It was all the same people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different dorms? Did you move out of stayed
Nothing.
in the barracks? Okay.
So the Army, and again, I only have my experience in the military police corps, but we had phases, and it were represented by a flag. So like red phase was the beginning of basic training. You couldn't, tie your shoe without permission. Couldn't go to the bathroom. And then it progressively got more and more lax. Okay. Never really fully lax, but like when you get into the end, I think it was gold phase, if I remember correctly, that you wouldn't have as much constant supervision. You'd have a little more downtime. You'd have a lot more, passes to go for a couple hours or walk to the PX or the shop at or Burger King or whatever it may be. But it was the same people, same drill sergeants. Okay. And it was all the way to graduation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you ended up going to Colorado.
I did. Yeah.
What was that like?
That was awesome. I couldn't have picked a better base. I'm kind of biased because that's the only one I ever went to, but at least as a full, I was assigned there. but that's how I got picked. That's what they picked me. I didn't ask for Colorado.
Sure.
And,
Well, all right. So what was on your dream sheet?
I didn't have one. So, the Army's a little weird. And I think this is why recruiters are so good at what they do is they don't tell you the shit that you probably want to know. Like, you could have gone to airborne, you could have gone to air assault school, or you could have gone to, you picked they made me feel that I picked my job, my MOS. That was all I was getting. I could have gone to Korea for all I had known. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I just happened to get Fort Carson.
Okay.
So it was a blessing. Great place to be deployed.
Okay.
Or be assigned. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of deployments, any time over in the desert?
I did. And the funny thing is I got to Colorado right after the start of the Y2K. So like January, I graduated basic in the end of December. I got Christmas off. I did that. You can attach to your recruiter and you get a couple extra days home.
Yeah.
So I went to Colorado in early January 2000 and flew in to Denver. They bust you down to Colorado Springs, which isn't too much, about an hour and change. And I got to what the Army calls reception battalion. It's basically everybody goes there. It's new, regardless of your rank, how long you've been in the military. You go there and you get in process to that base.
Okay.
You learn the basic rules. You get some cold weather gear. Obviously, Colorado, you're right at the base of the Rockies, so you make sure everything's good to go as far as shots and so on and so forth. There's people coming from overseas and that kind of thing. So it's usually a couple days.
Okay.
During that time, my unit came over to me and introduced me, and they were like, "Don't unpack. We leave in like 10 days." And I was like, "Huh?" So we were that unit was on leave. We were going to Bosnia. So
okay.
I got selected to go to a platoon or a company, the 984th MP company, and they were ready to go to Bosnia. They were already packed.
They were packed. Okay.
And I had to catch up. So I had to do I always think it's a funny story, but in Europe, they have a USER driving test. It's like the Europe version, the Europe American agreement. And if you drive over there, you have to have a European license. So they gave me this big sheet of all these signs and rules. It's like taking a regular driver's test in the US. So they said, study it. You're going to take a test because you're probably going to end up driving. That's one of the private jobs in the MP Corps is to drive. They break you up into teams. The lowest enlisted person is the driver. Sometimes as the gunner. It varies.
Okay.
And so I studied this thing for the weekend. Well, what I didn't know was the sheet they gave me was in black and white. When I got the test, guess what?
It was in color.
It was in color. And there's a very significant difference.
Yes, there is.
In color.
Yes.
So I still passed, but it was
interesting.
It was I was dumbfounded when they handed me a color test, and I was like, "You guys." So I made it through.
Welcome to the military.
But right? I was on a plane I didn't have my household goods. They pack your stuff from your home station, Massachusetts for me, and we're going to ship it to Colorado. But I was gone before they got there. So that's how quickly I made it to Colorado and then was on a plane.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you think of Bosnia?
It was interesting. It was good for a young private, young soldier to go to employment right away because you spend years. Some people spend years talking about doing things or going to the field and pretending to do stuff. So I actually got to do it. I came back with ribbons, and I was still
okay.
I went there in E3. I came back in E2. It's kind of a interesting story. I had a little blip in the map in my Bosnia story. I had a lot of fun. I wasn't the only one who lost rank, but we had a little bit of fun over there, and it was good. It was quiet. It was a very we were peacekeepers.
Okay.
So there wasn't a lot of conflict for us. It was between the two sides.
Right.
So
okay. Back in I think it was episode 8. Had an Air Force SP on the show, and he deployed to Bosnia in and around that same time frame as one of the peacekeeping units there. And he said that it was not uncommon to see people strapped, walking around with AKs, RPKs, whatever.
Oh yeah.
To include children.
Yeah, I don't recall any children, but I wouldn't put it past. I was if there was a bad part of Bosnia, that's where I was.
Oh, okay.
We were on the Serbian border. So the main part is Tuzla, Maine, and it was in, I can't remember, I think it's in Tuzla. But we were well north of like Sarajevo. And my platoon of 30-something folks, we got assigned to an outland post of about 700 soldiers, mostly cavalry guys. And we were right on the Serbian border. We were probably 10 minutes from Serbia, from like Yugoslavia. So it was we were very close, and we supported the Army Special Forces. They lived in a house kind of in the middle of the towns and stuff.
Okay.
We were their direct support, their quick reaction force, or QRF as Army calls it. And that was our main goal. Was we were always had a squad on call. Basically, that's all they could do. They had to be in uniform all day, had to be accountable, and we would rotate every third day. You had that assignment. The other 2 days, you might do some deliveries. You might go out and do some driving around, that kind of stuff. So,
okay.
So I didn't see it too much over there.
Okay. And you were in for 4 of your 8 active?
So I signed a 5-year enlistment.
I didn't know they had 5 years.
Yeah. Well, they probably did, and I probably was one of those suckers that was just like, okay, I'll just do that. So I got many times in the military, and that was just one of many.
Okay.
So I signed up for 5. I ended up doing 7 and change, which is kind of where that whole I got the second time.
Okay.
In about 2006. So, but Bosnia was my first deployment. It wasn't my last, but it was my first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where else did you get to travel and see?
So we came back from Bosnia, and again, I got into a little bit of trouble. So the few of us got delayed 14 days because we had to do some extra duty and some restriction. And a bunch of us lost rank. And the interesting thing is that the unit that we went to support, the cavalry unit, I think that they liked us, and they didn't like how the whole thing went down. So when I came back as an E2, wearing E2 rank, they never turned in the paperwork to the Army. So the Army always considered me an E3. So I was wearing E2, but I was getting paid E3. I didn't pay attention. It wasn't that much money back then.
No.
And
no.
So when they went to promote me back to E3 after I moved units, they made me move a unit, our sister unit. And then about 4 or 5 months later, they're like, all right, we can get back as E3. And they went to do that. The Army's like, he is an E3. Like, you can promote him to E4 because he's had the time and service, time and grade. So they promoted me to E4.
Oh, so you skipped a grade.
They took E2 off my collar and they put E4 on there. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like these people out here are like pushing at the screen saying, ask the question. So are you able to share what happened for the rank?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So what kind of fun resulted in a loss of a stripe?
So I was told, actually, she was just telling my wife this story. I was told when I got to Fort Carson that my platoon likes to drink. That was foreshadowing, I guess.
Okay.
So in Bosnia, because it was open market, you could just buy alcohol out there. And anybody in the military knows when you go overseas, general order number 1 is no sex, no alcohol. And I think most of the people in my unit probably violated both those rules. And we did consume alcohol. I did it once. I know plenty of people did it many more. I'm not a big drinker, but I do drink. And 4th of July, we had a big cookout down by our area. We had like 6-man rooms. So our platoon had one big, long hooch, basically. And we did a cookout. And somebody brought out alcohol. So we were mixing it with juice. And some people got drunk and some people just had to drink. I had one. I admitted to it. And that's kind of where somebody within the platoon ratted us out. We obviously knew who it was at the end because everybody had to stay back into Bosnia while the rest of our unit went home. And we were missing 2 people. When the dust settled and we were still in Bosnia, there was 2 people in the platoon that weren't there. They went home. So you can tell easily who it was, right?
Yeah. As they say, the FBI would call that a clue.
Yes. Yeah, that were quickly outcasted. And interesting enough, Nobody really talked to them again. So we all got Article 15s. The lower enlisted actually got punished a little bit harder, and that's what I was kind of explaining to my wife is that, in a company grade Article 15 in the Army, if you're E4 or below, they can take your rank from you. They can take one rank. They can 14 days extra duty, 14 days of restriction, and 7 days pay. So that's what all the lower enlisted got, E4 and below. I was E3 at the time, so that's what we got. To take an E5 or higher's rank, an NCO's rank, it needed to be field grade. Well, they had reduced all the NCOs except for the platoon sergeant, E7, down to a company. Company level, you can't take NCO rank. So all the NCOs who drank, which was pretty much all of them, didn't lose any rank, but they lost everything else.
Okay.
So they kept their rank. We all lost one. And then the E7 actually got dropped to E4. He got court-martialed.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's pretty difficult to go from E7 to E4.
Yeah.
And he did. So that was tough because he's the one in charge, and he consumed alcohol too. It wasn't just the fact that, he was in charge of us. He was also enjoying it with us. So that's kind of what ended up happening.
Wow.
The funny part is, of course it involved alcohol, but on my R&R, so we were there 8 months, 7 months, and my team, me, my driver was an E4 who just retired from the military, and our sergeant, we got to go to Budapest for our 4-day vacation.
Okay.
Well, the first day there, we all got drunk and got into a big ass fight, and we got thrown out. So I got kicked out of the country of Hungary with several other people. And I didn't get in trouble for that necessarily. I got yelled at,
right?
But I didn't lose any rank.
Okay.
So that I probably deserved it then.
Yeah.
But I guess when you put everything together, but I got kicked out of Hungary, which I always think is
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I've been kicked out of a country. So they brought
do you feel like you're on a criminal trespass warning list?
It might be.
Yeah, might be.
Yeah. They brought us to Croatia border, and they said the bus will pick you up in a couple hours. So
wow.
Yeah.
They were serious.
Yeah, they were. And we brought us back to Bosnia.
Okay.
It was fun.
All right.
Yeah. So I've been to Budapest, but I've never actually been to Budapest. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So I feel bad in saying that the 2 deployments I went on, they're just, I won't say deployments. They were TDYs because I was in the Air Force. So they weren't real, military.
It'll make more sense when I tell you my second deployment story. But
I feel bad for saying this. We had beer tents, and we were given a ration card, so you could have 3 drinks a night, and they would punch a hole, and the card had 3 on all sides, and you got a new one each week.
Mm-hmm. And where was this?
Both Jordan and Bahrain.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel. I mean.
That's okay. You picked the right branch. I did. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
So, my son is currently in basic training, Army basic training at Fort Jackson. He graduates December 20th, and he gets to call. He gets his cell phone. He gets to call every week. He gets like 30 minutes of phone time on Sunday. And I talked to him this past Sunday, and he said, "Dad, I finally had the I wish I joined the Air Force moment." And I was like, I tried to tell you.
It's only going to get worse. Yeah.
I tried to tell you. All right, so where else did you go?
So we got back in Bosnia. That whole thing dust settled, promoted E4. And our unit was on tap to relieve the Air Force of all units in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
So the security forces or security police, I don't know what they were at the time. I know they've changed names, but they were giving up Escon Village just outside of Riyadh, so near Prince Sultan Air Base. And it was a military base that had a lot of American civilians, but a lot of military as well because they were training the Saudi Army. So like you're going to go replace the Air Force security police and do their force protection. We're going to run the gate and towers and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. So coincidentally enough, we landed on September 10th, 2001. Yeah. Obviously not knowing what was going to happen the next day, but we landed in Prince Sultan Air Base, and we got driven over to Escon Village. I don't remember how far. It wasn't too far, but it was far enough. And they basically gave us 24 hours to settle in, and we get there, and they're like, this is where you're going to live. And it was all Air Force stuff. So we got these houses, and it was 5 people per house. Everybody had their own bedroom. And some of the rooms, there was 2 rooms in one corridor had a shared bathroom. The main master bedroom had a bathroom within it. So the highest listed person in there. And then 2 with a bathroom. The living room, there's a washer and a dryer, there's a kitchen. I was just like, are you kidding me? Right then I was like, I should join the Air Force. So that was it was very nice. We had there was a BX base exchange. There was almost a full-size commissary. The chow hall was some of the best food I've ever eaten. 2 order type food.
Right.
And again, I wish I'd joined the Air Force. Still a lot of decent amount of Air Force running around, but there was a phenomenal gym. But that was our main mission. But that was first 24 hours kind of sucked because all internet and phone lines at that time, this is 2001, went through New York. Obviously 9/11. We had just gotten there. I'm in an active duty unit, so we got people from all over the country. Nobody really called home yet because there was, we've been in the air for 24 hours with layovers and so on and so forth. So we all settled in and everybody started getting woken up. It's so many hours ahead there.
Right.
For the 9 o'clock in the morning here. And then the whole base got shut down. Everything. The outgoing unit couldn't leave, obviously, because no planes are flying out of, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which is where bin Laden is from.
Right.
And the land that Escon Village is built on was owned by the bin Laden family, the good side.
Right.
And very ironic, but that's where we were. Gulf Wars ran out of that Escon Village. The General Schwarzkopf's building is still there. They preserved it.
Okay.
For where he ran the war out of the headquarters there. And it was right next to one of the towers. And that was our main mission, was to sit in a tower, 12-hour shifts. You either worked a tower or you worked the front gate searching cars. And that was my second deployment. But you weren't allowed to wear military uniforms when you weren't on duty. So on the base, you had to be in civilians. So it was kind of nice.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm trying to think back. We lived in 10 cities, so we were playing Army the 2 times that I went over. I think we were allowed to wear civilian clothes when we weren't actually working.
Right.
I don't think it was an order though. So my last week in Jordan was when Khobar Towers was attacked. And we were like all buttoned up, almost completely packed, ready to go back home. And then Khobar Towers was attacked, and we had to unpack and hang out for a little bit longer,
right?
Before we flew home, and that changed a lot of military protocols back home. Like that's when they implemented the serpentine to drive around the barrels of the barricades.
Close the bases.
Yeah, before that, I mean, you could just motor right in with as long as you had the sticker on it. They didn't ask for IDs or anything. You had a sticker, come on in.
Even at Fort Carson, they only closed the base at night. So there was MPs up at the front from like 10 to 2. But prior to that, there was nobody even checking stickers. It was an open base.
Oh, wow.
9/11 changed that whole, obviously.
Yeah.
That's when they created the DOD police. It's a new police force, Department of Defense. They're civilians, but work in conjunction, and they close the bases, so you have to show ID anytime you go on there. So it definitely changed it.
Is Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville? I think that's still an open base.
Is it? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I think it is, or at least parts of it.
I've been to a few bases since I've gotten out of the military, and driven on, and an ID card has granted me access, but they could search you if they wanted to, and then they obviously were looking and scanning your driver's license and stuff. Yeah, it was an interesting time being over there. So I missed the American camaraderie, the "we love you" everybody in the United States, because I wasn't here. The signs over the bridges, and everybody's sticking up. We were one big country, and we weren't divided by any means. That actually brought us together, and I missed all that because I didn't come back until September 10th. We didn't come back till like April of 2002.
Okay.
So that we missed the majority of that.
Dying off.
But we came home to our soldiers, heroes welcome, because we were coming back from overseas. The Army ended up calling that a combat deployment, although it wasn't, because the Army awards combat patches. You can wear a patch on your right side showing that you've served in the forward area in combat. So they actually made that later on. They made that a combat deployment. So
yeah, good for them.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I got a patch out of it and a little bit extra money, but other than that, it was we didn't do a whole lot. We had our own rooms. We slept a lot, but we worked a lot too. So
interesting.
Yep. I'm friends with a lot of people. Not a lot, but I'm very good friends with several people I've been deployed with. Those units that I still talk to today.
That's good.
Yeah.
That I was in from 95 to 99, and there was no such thing as social media. Like,
right. Yeah.
Cell phones were just coming out for the average Joe. Like my father worked for Motorola his whole adult life, more or less, 40 plus years. So Dad always had a Motorola cell phone. Some of them early on, they were walkie-talkie looking like police radios that had a cellular function to it. He also had the bag phones and all that. But around 96, 97 is when I got my first cell phone, and it was a brick.
Oh yeah.
It was I
paid by the minute.
Yes. Yeah. Don't call me before 9 p.m. kind of thing. You're wasting my minutes kind of thing. We didn't have social media in order to be able to keep up with. You actually had to keep up with people,
right?
Or go search for them if you could remember their names. But we all get old, and memory is the first thing they go. And what was that guy's name? I can't remember. We called him such and such, but what was his real name?
I do that about people that I worked with now, and I can't remember that person's name anymore. So
yeah. All right. So coming back now, you're a hero. You're welcomed home. How much longer in the Army were you before ETSing?
So I was set to get out. That was 02 when we came back. My ETS would have been 04.
Okay.
I joined in 99. So I still had a little bit of time left in E4 now, promotable, getting ready to promote to E5. And I was actually set to go to what the Army calls, back then they called it PLDC. It was like Primary Leadership Development Course. They've changed it to the Warrior Leaders Course. It's basically an early NCO course you had to attend to become a sergeant in E5. And I was getting ready to go. I was going to Fort Hood, Texas, and that is when we invaded Iraq. So, everybody thinks they're going to go, and you're like, I probably won't go. We haven't been back a year. And I think the next day they were like, we're going. So everything got put on hold, and we got ready. This is, early 03, January timeframe.
Okay.
And so we started gearing up, getting everything ready and prepping, vehicles and equipment and, going through all the stuff you need to do before you deploy. So we just waited for the go ahead, which obviously eventually came. Where I was assigned, we were supposed to be part of the Turkey invasion. I don't know if you remember the 03 invasion to Iraq. They were going to send a contingent, which was just the 4th Infantry Division in the Army, up into Turkey and come down.
I did not realize that.
The 3rd ID, which is out of Georgia, was going to come north with the Marines and all the other folks, We're basically going to meet in Baghdad and crush everybody in the middle, right?
Okay.
And, take over Iraq and be heroes and, all that good shit. So eventually Turkey said, no, you can't come in. So we're going to politely decline your entrance. Well, our stuff had already been on a boat. It's already heading towards Turkey. So they sent us to Kuwait as a unit. And we went to Camp Virginia, I think is where we got sent to. They weren't even ready for us. The tents, all they had was walls. There was no floors. And we didn't have any gear. We had what we brought. So we were waiting on our Humvees and, crew service weapons and all that kind of stuff was in those trailers that we packed and sent out through Texas. So we sat in Kuwait while the war was kicking off for about a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we waited down there and just suffered in the heat. And the PX was a trailer. The phone, there was like 4 phones for the whole place to call back. So you'd have to wait in line for 4 hours just to call home. So
I remember those days.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, we had a tent. We had a phone tent. I think the longest I waited. Of course, it wasn't wartime, and there was plenty of downtime for us. But it was an hour, I think. But we constantly had sandstorms knock the daggum tower down.
Yeah, the lines. Yeah.
Yeah. So having to wait for them to put that back up to get the satellite link back together.
It was, the thing about the phone lines, it was always worth the wait to talk to people, but you had to choose who you talk to.
Yeah.
And then you only get 15 minutes. But for anybody who's ever been on there, there's a huge delay.
Yes.
So when you go to talk, the other person hears that delay and they start to talk, but then you've already started talking. So you spend a majority of the 15 minutes going, no, you go ahead.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
Yes.
Oh, you go ahead. And that's what you know what I mean? You get about 3 minutes of conversation on that. So
yeah,
that's usually the interesting memory I have of those like phones. So I didn't do it very often, but you obviously have to make those obligatory calls back home and tell everybody you're okay.
Yeah.
So that was we waited there about a week, and you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of electricity. You don't have a lot of power. There's no air conditioning, and it didn't get any better for the first couple months. We finally got our trucks. We finally got everything, but we didn't really have because we were supposed to go from Turkey down. We didn't belong to anybody. We were a MP company of 130, 140 people, but we didn't have a unit like a bigger. You can't just send 140 people out there and be like, go figure it out. So they got to assign you to a big brother. And we just basically latched on to different. We were part of the 1st Marine Division for a little while. We were part of the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne. And we worked for them for 6 weeks, a week. And then they finally, while the Army was trying to figure out what they wanted to do with us. So we made it to Baghdad and we waited. And that's when we got assigned to a new unit.
So you feel like the redheaded stepchildren running around?
100%. Yeah. I have probably 14 combat patches because we were assigned to units for so long that we were awarded their patch.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I mean it's a lineage thing, but it's also like this is how many people I was attached to over all the orders that we have, but we ended up at what is now Victory Base. Back then, it was the Baghdad Airport, and that base was 2 separate entities. You had to leave a confined security area to go to the the airport. Now it's all one big place.
Okay.
This is early 03, so there was nothing there. There was just grass and some rundown buildings and shacks, and we basically took them over and made them our house. They were spread out throughout the back. We call it back 40. So there was a
back 40.
And it's a common term for like military going to the woods,
Yeah.
And we secured one of the houses, no air conditioning, no power. It was just rooms. It was a wall and roof and that kind of stuff. So it had toilets, but they didn't work, that kind of thing. But that's the cool thing about the military is you got people from so many different backgrounds that used to do stuff. People that are mechanically inclined, people that have good skills. So I think one day one guy was like, "Screw this! I'm going to figure out how to run power." And he ran power to the building that I was staying in, which then kicked on the air conditioners.
Oh.
Yeah, we were the most favorite people in the world. I don't think you're supposed to put 100 people in this building, but we did.
Okay.
Because there was air conditioning in there, like cold water. I mean, there's no ice. If you don't have electricity, you can't make ice.
Right.
So your water you drank was regular temperature, which was horrible.
Yeah. Desert temp water is awful.
No, and we've tried every book, everything in the book with if you wet a sock and you put a bottle of water inside of there tied to the Humvee mirror, and then the condensation from the wet sock when you're driving would cool the water down a little bit. It tasted a lot colder than it actually was, but I mean, you tried everything. But they started selling ice outside of the gate, local nationals, and it was the dirtiest water you've ever seen in your life. But it was frozen, and they chopped it up and they put it in your cooler for you.
Oh,
it was good.
Okay. Well, all right. So I was a little worried. They put it in the cooler, so you could you didn't put it like in a glass. And, okay, good.
Just as ice. Yeah, it wasn't the kind of that you chew on after the drink. No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, you spend most of your day in a porta potty after that one.
Yes, you would. Yeah. That's why I was a little worried.
Yeah. It was just basically these little kids would be out there and they'd be selling big chunks of ice, and You roll up in your Humvee, you drop coolers, and they chop up all this ice for you with like a pick and throw it in there with your bottles of water and put the cooler back on and throw a couple of them up in your Humvee. And when you're way back in, you do the same thing. That way you had ice, water for the night, and then you just refill it and over like that. So
sweet.
Did what you could. And then eventually, everybody got power. But, going from Kuwait to Baghdad, there was no place to go to the bathroom. You're taking a dump in a half cut off barrel of jet fuel that they would burn. They'd take piping and put it into the ground. You'd be looking at it like we are right now, peeing in a pole and you're peeing in a pole, and we're like, so yeah, that's what you have to do.
Well, do what you got to do.
The worst part is somebody had to. The best thing about that first deployment is I was an NCO, so the labor laws in the military. There's people that have to take those, the half barrels of just piles of shit, pour jet fuel in it, and stir it.
Yeah, while it's burning.
Yeah, and somebody had to do that job, and it was usually a low enlisted. So that of all the days that I was blessed to be an NCO, that was definitely one of them. That although I would have I'd done it if they told me to. I just didn't want to.
Right.
So luckily there was a young E4 in our unit that screwed up massively on the flight over, and that was his job for an entire week. So
I would assume he didn't make the same mistake.
Well, you can only make that mistake once, and in the Army, everybody has like a flag, a guide-on flag. It's a unit flag, and it's usually colored by your like military police is a green flag, and it has the cross pistols and it has your unit number, and he left it on the plane. Yeah.
Wow.
So our first ever formation in Kuwait
had no flag,
no guide on, and the first sergeant. I've never seen anybody. I think he wanted to kill him, and everybody. It would have been justified, Everybody was like, "Okay, go ahead and do it." But when that kid realized, because he didn't realize he didn't have it until they were like, "Where's the guide on?" And the instant it hit him that it's on a plane in Kuwait, and we're not anywhere near it. Man, so that when I was in the meeting, when we moved forward, we were the first Marines. We're in the meeting. It's a bunch of NCOs because I was assigned to headquarters at the time, and the Marine captain or whatever he was like, we're going to need at least one person for chow duty and one person for shit duty. And the first sergeant was like, I have somebody for you for shit duty the entire week, same person. And I was like, I know who that is. And that's what he did, and that we were wearing the chocolate chip camouflage uniforms. We hadn't transitioned over to what they have now. And so when you burn shit, you get the remnants of it, the smut of it. And his uniform was no longer tan after that week. So
bless his heart.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow. He'll never do that again.
No, I guess not.
Yeah.
Well, let's fast forward. Let's get you into back home, Massachusetts. How did you end up in Georgia?
So that deployment, I was with a buddy who I'm still friends with this day. He's retired to Army, lives in San Diego now. He introduced me to my now wife. Oh, so I had already met her Thanksgiving 2002. So this Thanksgiving coming up will be 19 years. And so we started talking, and during that Iraq deployment and getting married, my 30 days home or 15 days home, it takes 20 something days, got married on that deployment. So as soon as I was getting out, which was coming up, I was going to get out in 2004, which is, when we got married in February of 2004. And
okay.
I was going to separate in August. So with block leave and all that kind of stuff, I had, more time. So she already lived here. She lived in Gwinnett. So she worked for a company who she still kind of works for in Norcross. So I didn't know much about Georgia. I had visited. That's how we got married here at the courthouse. GJAC, Gwinnett Justice Administration Center. So when I went back in, I started getting on the internet in Iraq and looking for police jobs. Still wanted to be a cop, and knew I was getting out.
Right.
Now I'm married. So she said the only thing I can't do is go to DeKalb.
Interesting.
She saw a news story that DeKalb had a lot of officers killed in the line of duty. So she's like, just no DeKalb. And I was like, okay. I didn't know anything about anywhere. I mean, I applied to LJ, Atlanta, a whole bunch of different places. And Gwinnett was one of the first ones to reach back out to me and start the process. So I got back from Iraq in 2004, and I had a couple months to, transition out of the military, and I was getting ready to do all that stuff that you have to do that. And I flew back to Georgia a couple times, to visit, and then also take like physical fitness test.
Right.
Gwinnett was good to me. They combined it into 2 trips.
Okay.
So I did all the hiring board stuff, the test, and then came back and did medical, psych, polygraph, that kind of stuff. 2 trips, passed everything. They actually called me the day I was driving out of Fort Carson to move to Georgia. Cars packed up. They called me as I was leaving the gate, offered me the job.
Wow.
So the academy starts in a couple weeks. You can start working next week. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I drove my happy ass back to Georgia, or down to Georgia, and from Colorado. And, using MapQuest. There's no GPS back then. So I printed off a bunch of pages. And,
right. Yep.
And drove down to Georgia, and I had about a week or so, I think. And then I started I started with the department, and I did like a menial administrative job. I actually worked in detectives doing runaways, just doing some paperwork for them. And I started the police academy. That was in 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that's where that's the department I was working at.
Yes.
At the time.
Right.
I had already been there. 99 is when I started. What precinct did you start at?
I, back then, I don't know if you remember, Central Precinct and West Side Precinct were on a 4 and 3. They were the only ones doing the 4 and 3 back then.
Okay.
So if you got assigned to FTO somewhere, West Side or Central, you stayed there. You never moved precincts. So I got West Side, Norcross. Which was a great thing because that's where I spent most of my career.
Okay.
So I went to Norcross, FTO there, and then got morning watch, so the overnight shift, as soon as I got off FTO, and stayed there. I was assigned there for 5 years, but the military wasn't done with me. So in 2006, they called me back. So I've been in Gwinnett about 2 years, and I got a letter in the mail that said, your 8 years isn't up, and we would like more service out of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was one of those guys.
Nice. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm still here. So it was a little blip in the map, but the weird thing is that, everybody enters, MEPS, everybody knows MEPS, the military entrance processing station. I did mine in Massachusetts, where I was from. Well, when you separate, when I got my 214, I put my new Georgia address. Well, the Army's decided to still send me stuff to Massachusetts, to my mother's address. And I'd get a lot of junk mail. So I told my mom, every 30 days or so, just put everything in an envelope, send it down to me. I'll filter through it, and then blah, blah. Well, they sent the orders to Massachusetts. So I'm going through that mail that my mom had sent me, and in there is a pair of official orders that's telling me that I need to come back to the military. Now, the crappy part is in that 30-day cycle, when I got a letter, it was like 4 days away.
Wow.
Report to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Welcome back to the military. And I was like, oh, hell no. So my wife's pregnant with my son. And obviously I was blindsided by this. And being a cop, I knew that, I can't ignore it. And I don't want to be, this says you're going to be listed as AWOL, which I didn't know that they were full of shit. I find that out later, but I was like, oh, okay. So I called them and I was like, hey, this is my situation. They gave me a 90-day extension. So I didn't have to report. My son was 6 weeks old when I reported to Fort Jackson.
Okay.
So I've been a cop for 2 years. I got to go to Fort Jackson now and reprocess back in the military. So I had to do, central issuing, uniforms, boots, firearms, all that stuff. So I started with Fort Jackson for a couple of weeks, and then I had to go back to Fort Leonard Wood because they send you back to where your MOS is. So I did 2 weeks in Fort Leonard Wood. And then I found out where I was going. So the way that they do the inactive ready reserve, the IRR, is they don't assign you back to active duty, even though you were active duty. They backfill the reserves and National Guard. I wasn't happy about that at the time.
No, I guess not.
So I got orders to go to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Yeah. And if anybody's ever been there, that has the same reaction that you did. Yeah, right next to McGuire Air Force Base.
Yeah.
They're basically attached.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you're going to meet your unit. My original orders had me as civil affairs. This one sent me to a field artillery unit. I was like,
nice.
Now I get there, things got better from there. It was a horrible experience at Fort Dix. Probably 60 days of my life I wish to never repeat. But I got assigned to the Massachusetts National Guard. My people.
Your peeps?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have some really good friends that I still talk to this day. People I've been in their weddings from that deployment and that military unit. I was accepted well, one, because I'm from there. I was an MP, and they were going to do an MP mission. And I'd already been over there. And we were going back to Baghdad International Airport area, Camp Victory.
Okay.
We're going to the embassy. We're going to the Green Zone. So separate, but pretty close.
Yeah.
And I'm very familiar with that area. I'd been there plenty of times. So we got assigned to the Green Zone working for the ambassador to the United States.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad gig.
Right.
I got a good assignment. I was an NCO still. They let me have my rank. But the Army, they wanted another year and change out of me. So that's I went back and did another year. And I think with the ready up time was a bunch of months. And then we did a year to the day back in Baghdad. So I did my second tour in Iraq in the Green Zone. So,
and you were there for a whole year and a day?
To the day. I mean, exactly 1 year, 365 exact days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. Like they planned it. I'm sure they did, but that's where we went. So it wasn't. The living accommodations were decent. The embassy comes with perks. Coffee shop. It's like a Starbucks known as Green Bean Coffee. The chow hall was meant for a lot of civilians that work for the State Department, so the food was better. The gym was nice, so it wasn't too bad. I got lucky and got a good job. It wasn't a horrible. Just the separation from family, and I left. My son was 6 weeks. I came back. He's walking and he's out of diapers. Wow. Yeah, I get a lot of shit for that too because I didn't change many diapers in my life. So now he's 15, so I don't have to worry about that.
Now you don't. Yeah, not until your grandpa.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so yeah, the Army got a little bit more out of me. They ended up getting a little more than 8 years. So I joined in 99, I left in 07. But ended up leaving in September of 07. So they got 8 years and 4 months out of me.
So when the second Gulf War happened, I was still at Gwinnett, and I was still inside of my inactive reserve. And I was pretty sure that I was going to get called back. I didn't, and thankfully, because I had forgotten more than I probably learned to begin with.
Right.
In that it's a diminishing kind of set of skills. It would have taken so long to get ramped back up, get back into avionics. I was F-16 avionics guy.
Okay.
So I would have had to probably go back to tech school and learn electronics principles again.
Absolutely.
So I was glad they didn't call me back, but I was worried about it. They were calling people back, not left and right, but I mean, they were calling folks back.
When I got to Fort Jackson, they were surprised to see me. Like nobody shows up. And I was like, son of a bitch. Because I found out, having a conversation that not many people actually show up and they really don't do anything. And I wish I had known that, but I did it. I did the right thing.
Yeah.
And, I don't regret serving my country. And, it ended up working okay for me. I made a lot of contacts and, friends. So I was, and I'll go back to that in a second, but, when we got assigned over there as the ambassadors protection, we were also assigned to Blackwater when they were Blackwater.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people in Blackwater that are former, Rangers, Navy SEALs, Special Forces, and a lot of people I got to meet in that community and talk to. And because I was in law enforcement at the time, even though I was a rookie, a couple years in, they accepted me. I got to spend a lot more time than most people do. I got to go to their man camp and hang out with those guys and people I still associate with that are spread out throughout the country that did that job back when Blackwater was Blackwater.
Interesting.
Yeah. And when I first went to Fort Jackson, they were like, yeah, nobody shows up. We were really surprised. They didn't know what to do with me. And, it was one of those like weird spots. And I was like, that stinks. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of Navy folks there that were changing over in the Army, doing Army jobs. You know, the military was scrambling, and you know, it was just one of those things where, you know, that they called you and you showed up, and they figured they got to do something with you. So they were. When I showed up that day, I immediately went back 2 years, because when I was separating from the Army active duty, they were, you know, they try to talk you into staying into some sort of capacity.
Mm-hmm.
When you separate from active service, you know, try to get you into a reserve program or National Guard. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. They're like, you sure? That way you don't get called back up. You're blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. Famous last words. Right?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And they got me. Yeah.
Wow. I guess I did not realize that, because I left the county in 06.
Right when I was leaving. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I didn't realize that you had gone.
I think my son was born in March, so I left in April, I think, of 06, and came back in September of 07.
Okay.
And they basically, they piss tested me, and I don't even think I rode with anybody for a day. And then they were like, all right, you're 121 today. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
Right back in. So
all right.
Picked up my car, and uniform still fit, and I went right back on. I stayed at Westside.
Westside, for those that don't know, the Westside precinct is, at the time, and I can only assume it still is now, the hard charging, fast, balls to the wall, all day long kind of precinct. I mean, it's pretty wide open.
Yeah, you know, they've they got a new precinct. They have a 6th precinct in Gwinnett now. So they've rezoned a bunch of things. And even when I was there, they changed it to part of Central Precinct into West Side. But it's always been geographically the smallest, but you know, call volume the biggest.
Yes.
A lot of violent crime. You know, you're close to the county border with DeKalb, so you can get to Atlanta pretty quick. You got a lot of interstate. It's always been pretty busy. You have a great place to learn.
Yes.
I cut my first. I ask this a lot when I teach, and I ask people, you know, what was your first call when you got cut loose? When you're all by yourself and you're in your car, and you're like, beep, you know, 121, and you're like 121, and you're like, here comes your first call ever.
Yeah.
You know, what was yours? And mine was an armed robbery in progress. And I was at a Taco Bell, and Jimmy Carter was just, you know, you could probably hit the precinct from it with a stone. And I was like, holy crap, this job's real. And I'm like, all right, let's go. That was my first call. My first call on FTO was an alarm at an apartment. While I was sitting at Dunkin' Donuts, I was like, oh my God, I am a cop, right? I'm sitting here eating donuts with my FTO. And that was my first call. But my first call by myself was armed robbery in progress. And that's the precinct that you could get 5 of those one night, or you could have just a bunch of collisions, or, you know, but it was always busy. You never, you know, there wasn't a lot of proactivity necessarily, at least during the day watch and the middle shift, the evening watch. You're humping calls.
Yeah. So 30 plus calls a shift.
Easily. And you know, the good part about that precinct is you had a lot of backup. You know, you could be aggressive because you knew somebody's got your back. You know what I mean? You can get into some stuff because, and not that you need backup, but it's nice to know that you have it.
Yeah.
But you could definitely get into some stuff and get some support to be able to go further into a call. So great precinct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spent 5 years there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did the first part of my FTO there on morning watch. A great group of guys. One's now an assistant chief. Great group. A lot of experience in that first 4 weeks that I was there. And then I went to Central Day Watch. So I went from West Side Morning Watch to Central Day Watch. And my first call was an alarm at a what was it? It was a car wash that I cleared. No big deal. Second call was a chase coming out of DeKalb with a carjacked a pickup truck that had a baby in the back seat.
Dang.
And funny
a
story.
variety of law enforcement, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It started somewhere in DeKalb. I think DeKalb PD was in it. GSP was in it. I think there were a couple city agencies from DeKalb that was in. I mean, there was like a motorcade of cars coming up I-85 and got off at Pleasant Hill, made the loop, right? And that's when I got in because I blocked the overpass, forced them Like I came sliding in like Dukes of Hazzard, sliding in
filmed in Georgia, by the way.
Yes,
and Gwinnett,
parts of it, yeah. Right as he was coming, so I pushed him back southbound on the interstate, got in the chase. In my 1995 Chevy Lumina.
Nice.
Yeah. I rolled my windows up, I turned the air off, and I was trying to push forward, and the governor kicked in at 87 and pushed me back down to 82.
Nice.
And I was out of the chase. Yeah. There was a DeKalb car, Crown Vic, that actually wrecked out on Pleasant Hill up that embankment. Ended up passing me. So that's when I turned my lights off.
Yeah.
And got off.
Yeah.
We ended up getting written up.
For getting in it?
Yeah. And then the DeKalb chief wrote us all a good letter, and it got rescinded. Nice. Our write-up got rescinded.
Yeah.
Attention veteran businesses. Do you want an easy way to be certified as a veteran-owned business? Do you want a better way to show it off in the same hard-charging fashion as our old unit badges? Do you want an easier way to be found, get business write-ups, interviews, social media promotion, and more? avboa.net has your six. Get access to over 20 hard-charging digital badges for web and social media shares that shows you are a certified veteran-owned business. You've earned it. Show it off. Visit avboa.net. Use code KNOCK6, that's KNOCKSIX. Get your digital badge today. Anything stand out? I mean, the call volume, as we discussed at Westside, is crazy. But there's a lot of good stories that come out of Westside. Foot chases.
Oh, yeah.
Short car chases. I mean, we had no chase policy, but it still happened.
Depending on who your supervisor is.
Yeah. Anything that stands out from Westside? I mean, you were there 5 years.
You know, those first 5 years, nothing significant, but a lot of Westside stories because I had transferred from Westside Precinct to the DUI unit. When I went to DUI task force, I spent most of my time, one, because I knew Westside well, like, you know, small geographic area, but a lot of drunks too. And that's why why I got the DUI, because working morning watch at Norcross, I ended up finding a lot of DUIs. And I was catching 70 a year as a road officer, which is a decent amount.
Yeah, it is.
And, you know, still humping calls. So I got over to DUI in 2009 and spent a lot of my time at Westside because the interstate, you got the DeKalb traffic, the Atlanta traffic, because they serve alcohol till 4. And then, you know, I'd stay around Pleasant Hill and go into Central a little bit. But I remember, and I always laugh about it too, because I stopped a car for unsafe U-turn. Actually, they came out of a side street. Didn't look like they stopped all the way, but they jetted all the way across Jimmy Carter and did a U-turn in front of a bunch of cars. I was like, that looks like a drunk. So I hit the lights and go to pull it over, and it pulls into what used to be a nightclub called El Imperio. It's not there anymore. They've revitalized all of Jimmy Carter, but it pulls into the nightclub, and there's an off-duty officer working, sees my traffic stop. Luckily for me, starts walking back towards my stop. That car takes me all the way to the back. And as soon as I get out of everything comes to a stop, all the doors open. So 3 in the car, challenge everybody, 2 stay, 1 runs. Now I got backup. So I go. Guy goes into a wood line. Well, what the bad thing for him is on the other side of that wood line is a short road called Live Oak Parkway, which connects to a Quick Trip, which is you'll always find a cop. Well, the entire K9 unit was there. Taking
luck.
A break.
What luck.
So I got a foot pursuit where he's got something in his hand. Whole K9 unit sets up, sends a dog in, catches him, bites him, finds the article, which was a purse. It was a woman's purse. Now they're holding the air already when I made the traffic stop. So I actually made the traffic stop on the radio channel for Central Precinct because they were holding a call for a home invasion. Well, what I didn't know was I was stopping the car from the home invasion.
Wow.
It was an Asian business follow. So they were following an older couple that were Asian business owners. And I just happened to stop the car. They think I'm stopping them because they robbed the place. I'm stopping them because I think it's a DUI.
Wow.
And then there's no radio traffic because they're holding for the other unit. There was injuries. They pistol whipped the mom or the older lady. That was her purse, which is what he ran in the woods with. And all tied together. And I'm sitting here going, this is a good lick. But I'm like, nobody's DUI. And, you're stat driven when you're a traffic cop. And I'm like, is anybody drunk? Does anybody want this call so I can go get a DUI? So it was a good lick. Though.
Yeah.
So
I always said it's better to be lucky than good.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're good all the time. They have to be lucky every time.
Right.
We just have to be lucky that one time.
Exactly.
And that was a good lick.
The whole thing I put together, the pieces, was by I'm assuming the same person that you worked for or with that's now assistant chief, because at the time, my supervisor on the DUI unit is also now assistant chief there, and they were both on scene. So they kind of put all that together. So it was interesting. One of my favorite supervisors of all time.
Yes.
So it was a good call. It was fun. West Side provided a lot of humor.
Yes.
A lot of foot chases and just a lot of fun stuff. And I spent most of my back and forth time on DUI in the West Precinct area.
Okay.
We had free roam in the county.
Right. Yeah.
That was between West Side and Central, where Gwinnett Place Mall is kind of where that's where all the bars where Wild Bill's was open back then. And,
right.
A lot of those different clubs were spread out. Somewhere between Pleasant Hill and Jimmy Carter's where we just killed it year after year after year.
Yeah. Not to take away from the rest of the time at Gwinnett. I mean, you had a pretty stellar career. Then you ended up going out to Arizona.
Right.
What made that move?
So, the interesting, I'll tell you how it started was cutting grass. And I'll tell you that to tell you the story. So,
okay.
I lived in Gwinnett, lived over by Brookwood High School, or, my old stepdaughter graduated from in 15. But I was cutting grass, and it took me like almost every weekend hours. And I hated it. I don't like cutting grass. I just never been a big fan. And I said, my wife is from Arizona. She grew up mostly there. She's born in New York, lived in Alabama, but most of her time is her parents still live in Arizona. Her sisters are there. I was like, man, we wouldn't have to cut grass if we lived in Arizona. I said it as a joke. And when my daughter was getting ready to graduate high school, I started looking. I've always wanted to be a trooper. So it kind of goes back to the Massachusetts thing. It's coming full circle. Massachusetts State Police, the stateies there are revered. You're not even allowed to look at them for too long. You know what I mean? That kind of thing without permission. I always wanted to be one. Very hard to get on. I took it was 96 or 97. I took the state police test for Massachusetts. They were hiring, I think, 70 troopers for a school, and more than 15,000 people.
Holy cow!
Took the test. You think about that now, you couldn't get 15,000 people in the country to take a police test.
No.
So always want to be a trooper. Arizona has a lateral program for their state police.
Okay.
They call them Department of Public Safety. Georgia's a Department of Public Safety as well. But they call them DPS out there, or they're troopers in Highway Patrol, Arizona Highway Patrol. And I applied. And daughter was getting ready to graduate. Son was still in elementary school, so it was early in his life. We figured he could adjust, go do middle school or some elementary school, that kind of stuff there. I think he was in third grade at the time. And they hired me. And so we said, screw it, packed everything up, and we moved. They guaranteed assignment. I went early because I had to do trooper school.
Okay.
So I went early. That's in Phoenix. So I got there. I challenged their post test. So I did some study up, had to do firearms, driving, all the basic stuff, just quickly. Took the written test, passed. They blessed me as a peace officer, and now I have, arrest powers. Go to trooper school, and while I'm in trooper school, my wife and son joined. We already found a place in Tucson, which is where we were assigned. That's where she's from. And finished trooper school and got assigned to the Tucson district. So, yeah, it was good.
How long were you out there?
5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed like it was long, but it seemed like it was quick too.
Right.
So, Arizona's a big DUI state as well. I continued my career from DUI, started teaching, got into the DRE program, the Drug Recognition Expert program. And then, a lot of that teaching and then doing portion. And, Arizona just kind of continued that. It was an easy transition out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You were out there 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
A different, I'm sure the mentality is the same within the departments, right? Different laws, similar but different statutes or elements within the crime. Did you find it difficult to make that leap into a different state with now new laws or new wording of the same types of laws?
No, not really. I think I think the hard part about being a cop is learning how to be one. And I think when you're a cop, and you understand the concepts of policing. It's a different, highway patrol only does highway patrol stuff. They work wrecks and DUIs basically is their main function, clear roadway debris. They don't do a lot of investigative stuff. They have investigative portions, but it's not a main function of a highway patrol officer, or a trooper out there. So learning to turn off the, hot call, desire, in Gwinnett, they would alert tone, the hot tone for armed robbery or, shots fired. Out there, they alert tone for roadway debris. So you get all excited and you're like, oh, it's just a time of the road, that kind of thing. So it was that mental transition.
Yeah.
Georgia has a million different thefts, like theft by receiving, theft by conversion, theft by deception. Out there, it's just larceny. And then it'd be like paragraph 1, then paragraph 2, like different kinds. So they consolidate. Traffic laws are civil. Most of them are civil out there, which makes it easier as a law enforcement officer. You don't have to sign every ticket, only criminal tickets. So it makes it, one less step you got to do.
Okay.
But it was easy enough. Yeah, I think I switched over. The hard part, I think, for me was Gwinnett uses the military phonetics.
Yeah.
The Alpha, Bravo.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Out there, they use the LA style. Adam, Boy, Charles. Mm-hmm. So every once in a while, I'd run a license plate over the air and be like, Alpha Boy, and be like, I mix the two. So that kind of stuff. So they don't use a lot of 10 codes. And I know you're familiar with Gwinnett. And,
the signals.
Gwinnett has 100 and something signals. They have like 40 codes, and then they have numerous 10 codes. Mostly plain talk out west, at least for the highway patrol.
Okay.
Yeah. You just be like, my call sign, 1738 traffic. And that's all I say instead of, Gwinnett was 1037.
Yeah.
To initiate a traffic stop. So it was just a little bit different. So you adapt pretty quick, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked at a couple of different departments here in Georgia. So the same laws to enforce, already knew the statutes and the elements, but it was learning the new departments that took a little bit of time.
You went to college after Gwinnett, didn't you?
So I went from Gwinnett to the city of Houston.
Okay.
Up in Jackson County. 7-man police department.
Nice.
Yeah. 2 square miles. I think there were 250 front doors and about 50 businesses in the town. Not a traffic light in the whole time. It was like Mayberry.
Yeah.
And then the economy killed that city. This was in 07 through 09. And they couldn't afford the police department anymore. So they turned services over to the sheriff's department. And I went to Winder PD for a year. Not my favorite place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was there a year and I think a day. And then was recruited to go to the college.
Right.
To start, because it was becoming a full-time 24/7 department.
Right.
But you mentioned the phonetics alphabet. When I was at Houston, we share a radio channel with all of the cities in Jackson County. We were all on one radio. So we had Houston and Brazelton, Jefferson, and Arcade when their officer was on duty, Pendergrass when their officer was on duty, Maysville every once in a while, and Commerce. So all of us were on the same radios. So sometimes it was difficult to call out.
To talk, yeah, imagine.
The Commerce guys had a lot of fun on the radio. They would pick a theme for the shift, and that would be their phonetic spelling. So one night was the zoo. So every letter was an animal. Alligator, bird, crocodile kind of thing. And it was funny to listen to.
Right.
Man, it got obnoxious.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I think the radio dispatcher enjoyed it for about 20 minutes. And then
it lost its
yeah.
That's funny stuff.
Yeah. Things you can get away with small town.
Of
Georgia,
course.
you know.
It's very small up there.
Yeah. So in Arizona, is that when you were already a DRE before going out there, right?
Yeah, I went through DRE school in Gwinnett in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started teaching here and you just continued there.
I went to field sobriety instructor in 2009. Before I actually became an instructor, it was not really a drug deal, but just they knew I was going to instructor school, so they allowed me to go to that instructor class.
Okay.
I just wouldn't be able to teach until I went to my general instructor portion, which was coming up. And I went to DRE school and instructor school in the same year, which was probably one of the hardest years of my life because two of the tougher schools in law enforcement. There's several out there, but those are two that are up there, I would say. And so then I went to instructor school in 2010 and then started teaching regularly at the Gwinnett Police Academy in the DUI world and traffic law, and just kept going from there. I kind of wanted to go to the academy, and I did spend 2 years up there at the training center in Lawrenceville from 2012 to 13, in that range, that just shy of 2 years because I was getting promoted to sergeant.
Okay.
And so I spent a couple of years, and while I was up there, I did firearms instructor and driving instructor so I could help because, we're self-encompassing there with all that stuff. And I got several of the other certifications, but mostly my passion's always been DUI, teaching and enforcement.
Okay. So you were there 5 years and then you came back.
I did. I was in 2015 or 2020, the training center, Gypstick, the DRE coordinator, state coordinator, every state has one, and Georgia's is out of the training center at Gypstick. Well, he was leaving and going to a sheriff's office. So a couple of my friends I've stayed in contact with, to include my boss now, called me up and said, "Hey, I know you're out there, but are you interested?" And, it doesn't come open very often. I'm only the 7th state coordinator in 30 years, so it doesn't happen.
Wow.
It doesn't come open a lot.
Yeah.
And it was just the right time, personally, in Arizona and life. And I was like, not a bad idea. So closed those doors out there, and I jumped in and drove back here, and right in the middle of COVID, which was kind of my barrack story. But I drove out here in March of 2020 and took that job at the training center, running the DRE program for the state. Wow. Which also, we get housed in the traffic section. So there's 3 of us, my boss, who used to be the state coordinator back in the day. And then there's a guy that runs, Brad Owens runs field sobriety program for the state. He also runs speed detection, so radar and LiDAR, advanced traffic law, and some smaller classes and all the instructor stuff. I got DRE, and then the ARIDE program, which is the drugs that impair class. It's a 2-day class that I run for the state. So that's pretty much what I do every day.
And now you're cutting grass again.
I live in an apartment.
Ah,
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So eventually I might cut grass one day or put in fake grass. But right now I live in when we moved back, now my son's in high school. So when we moved him back, he had just finished 8th grade.
Okay.
So I said, all right, this is where Gypstick is. There's not a lot of great districts in the area.
Unfortunately.
And not knocking anybody down there. It's just academically and athletically, I wanted him to find something that matched, something that met our standards academically and his standards athletically. So I just said, this is where it's at. Start looking. And he picked Warner Robins.
Okay.
In Houston County High specifically for their football program. It's where Jake Fromm came from. They played at UGA, now the Buffalo Bills. Same exact high school.
Okay.
And it's about 35 miles from Gypstick south.
Okay.
And everybody knows where Buc-ee's is.
Yeah.
Down there. That's the same exit I live on. So,
okay. Let's take that back. I've been to a Buc-ee's. The one in Leeds, Alabama, coming back from Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah.
It's huge, dude.
Massive.
Massive.
They're mostly in Texas, and that's where I first saw them. So yeah. There's another one in Georgia too, in Calhoun.
So yeah, I've heard.
North, and then Tennessee's building another one.
Okay.
So that's where I live, and that's where he picked because he is he plays football and wrestles, and academically it's a good school.
Oh, good. Okay.
Of the 5 high schools in Warner Robins, and they all have their goods and bads, but that was the one that had kind of both that we liked. Some had better football, some had better academics, but when you put the two together, they met the middle, and so that's what we picked. And I've been there since March of 2010.
Okay. A quick trip back to Arizona. I have a question for you, and it just popped in my head. Years ago, I went on a vacation to Ruidoso, New Mexico, and we flew into Albuquerque and then rented a car and drove up to Ruidoso. On the way back, the car got hit by a tumbleweed.
Mm-hmm.
Just came right across the interstate, hit the car side, the front quarter panel. It destroyed the paint on this car.
Oh yeah.
Is that a common occurrence out there in Tucson?
Not so much in Tucson proper, because it's a city of a million.
Okay.
The University of Arizona is housed there. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is there.
Okay.
So it's a big city. So in the metropolitan, no. But when you get on the outskirts, absolutely. Yeah. The road, I-10 goes between Tucson and Phoenix, and there's towns in between. But they're the middle of it is a town called Casa Grande, and just south of that is an open area because it's just flat land. A lot of it's flat land. When there's wind and weather, there's nothing to stop it. So it's a very notorious area near a place called Picacho Peak, where there'd be 60-car pileups because you can't see where dust storms come across the interstate. And
oh wow, I didn't think about that.
It's driving with your eyes closed, with 150 friends.
Yeah,
that can't see either. You know what I mean? And just hoping you don't hit each other, and they all do. And
be like Cole Triggle, pick a lane, drive right through.
Yeah, that's
just
what
pick
it
a
is.
lane, drive right through.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of bad outcomes.
Yeah,
and they teach you to pull off to the side, turn off your lights, and put on your parking brake. So one, because if you don't touch your lights, because people see lights, they follow them. So, but you also are just sitting out there as a duck, and an 18-wheeler hits you, another car hits you. So it's usually a bad recipe. But in the cities areas, not so bad.
Okay.
But you get outside of those cities, you're going to see a lot of things that go across. A lot of people don't. You think about cop stuff. People don't run from you in Arizona, and like on the interstate. If you bail out, the only place to go is into like cactus area. And if you run in there, I'm not coming with you. And you're just going to come out hurt.
Yeah.
So there's you're not gonna get very far.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they don't run. They stay on the hardball. So you might be chasing somebody on foot on the interstate, but if they jump over, they're going to go into the desert in the cactus, and that's bad news.
Bad news.
Yeah.
I imagine there's some rattler friends out there too that.
Yeah. You run into them every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, to the tumbleweeds, how often did your patrol car have to get repainted, or did they just hit it and keep going?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever hit a tumbleweed or had one hit me.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't recall in that area. I mean, I don't know about some of the other areas, but some of the desolate parts. Arizona's really remote.
Yeah.
They have their big pockets. I think there's 7 million people in the state. 5 million live in Phoenix. 1 million live in Tucson.
Okay.
And that remaining million's kind of mostly like Sedona, Prescott, Flagstaff, and then there's like 10 people everywhere else. So it's a pretty remote area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just is it Gwinnett in colored forms. If you scratch a patrol car,
oh yeah,
don't go get the whiteout. Don't go to the dealership and get the pin. You better report it. So I was just wondering what that might look like.
Arizona's a little more forgiving, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't I was very fortunate out there. Good agency. They're one of their main focuses, their mission priorities is DUI enforcement. Getting drunks, and that was already had, kind of really honed that craft.
Yeah.
So when I showed up off FTO, and even on FTO, I got a lot of DUIs, but off FTO, I started wrecking it. And I got really lucky, and they were just like, "You want a new car?" I was like, "Okay." A year later, they're like, "You want a new car?" I'm like, "Okay." So I never had a car for more than a year out there. I was getting brand new cars every year.
Wow.
It was really nice.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I've ever had a new car.
I got one in Gwinnett, 2, because I got one when I was right before I left on DUI. I was back on DUI when I left.
Okay.
As a sergeant. I got a brand new car. But I got a Crown Vic when I got to Arizona.
Nice.
I never had one before.
No.
Yeah, I wasn't in it very long because I didn't fit very well. And
well, certainly better than the Impala or the Intrepid.
Never had an Intrepid. Never had a Lumina.
Piece of junk.
Yeah, I've FTO'd in the Intrepid.
Okay.
And I always laugh because the way that Gwinnett did their MDT stands is that metal rod came over and was partially in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a small dude, so what I used to do is buy pipe tubing, like insulation tubing,
right.
And I would, every time I got a rookie and I had an Intrepid, I would put that insulation cushion and I had duct tape around it because my leg would be on it the whole time, for 8 hours, 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do to every single car. The Intrepids are hard to get in and out of.
Oh, they're a piece of junk.
Yeah.
Piece of junk. Well, we're sitting at 90 minutes.
Nice.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Sure does.
Yeah. I say this, I think, every time, but I feel like we just really scratched the surface.
You cover my career.
Yeah. In 90 minutes. I don't think that's really the justice. So I'll leave this up to you. I know that these are off days and you're about 2 hours from home. So thanks, one, for coming up here and being the second in studio guest.
Absolutely.
I'll leave it to you.
We can go a little longer.
A little longer?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
All right. You just say when, and I'll hit the button, and then we can say goodbye. So
right.
We'll leave
Works
it
for
to you. Back here now as an instructor, students, right? So you've been in just over a year. Right?
Almost a year and a half now.
Almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
In DRE school, I never went, so I've only heard the stories of how difficult it is. Anything come out of any of your classes? Bonehead moments? Any of the students, of course, we'll say the names to protect the
innocent,
the innocent.
Or the guilty in this way.
Yeah.
Not so much. I mean, we and most programs are like this, but we go after attention to detail. The finer things that people don't pay attention to. And there's a ton of good street cops out there. And, they pay attention to details. And it's not saying that they don't. We're just, because the E and DRE is expert, we try to really kind of polish that good officer, that good DUI officer, to really pay attention to the small details. Read the entire email, read the fine print, pay attention to the instructions. So we don't do a lot of babying like you get in a regular class where we'd be like, make sure you do this or make sure you do that. I usually give instructions once, like how to fill out a Scantron, the bubble sheets.
Yeah.
We do that as instructors. I do it all the time. And I have to really walk people through this. And, in DRE school, I explain it once and that's it. So I expect you to remember how to do it as a basic form. And to be an expert, you need to know how to do things very, very well. And that's kind of what we do. But we have, and it's not a secret. We've had it for over 20 years. It's a turd. It's a fake piece of dog shit, basically. And it's mounted on a piece of wood.
Okay.
And that is a reward during DRE school for messing up. And it is your friend. And the turd must be taken with you everywhere you go.
That's awesome.
And we do a little military aspect to it. So
yeah.
when if you have the turd and I get it, we have an actual official change of turd ceremony. And that's facing movements. That's saluting, requesting permission to then take the turd.
That's great.
Yeah, when you take pictures and send it to you, like if you work for agency A and we have a DRE that works at that agency, we'll take a picture of you with the turd and send it to them. So we like to memorialize a lot of things, and we try to lighten the mood a little bit too, because it is an intensive class. I mean,
yeah,
we cover in 9 school days. We cover almost 1,400 pages of a manual.
Wow.
So it's separated. The main school is over 1,000 pages, and then a couple hundred pages for the preschool. Would make up 9 days with a weekend break in the middle, and that's just section 1. We still take the whole school down to Jacksonville, and we do our field certifications in Florida with people that are impaired by drugs and alcohol or a combination. And that's another week of report writing and evaluations. They have to do 12 evaluations each. They got to write a report for each one. And then there's the final test that is, anywhere between 4 and 10 hours per person.
Holy cow.
And that's the culmination test. It's just a lot of writing. So there's we always have little stupid moments where people do stuff, and it's usually just small little tweaks, and we'll make it funny.
So how did Jacksonville get picked?
Jacksonville's been around for a while. The state of Florida has been using them for over 8 years, and several other states have joined on.
Okay.
So the old way of DRE, when I went through 2010, was basically we would find places that supported the program. Like my first ever session was in Houston County, where I live now. So they used to have a lot of DRE. So they were like, hey, you guys can come down here and let us set up at the sheriff's office or police department. And then their officers knew what we were looking for, and they try to go find people impaired by drugs.
Okay.
And, whether it be a road check or something along the lines with Governor's Office of Highway Safety, Rolling Thunder Task Force, they call it. So different ways, but it took forever. So I started DRE school in March of 2010. I didn't actually finish until almost September because it took so long. You had to get 12 evaluations. So sometimes it took longer. Gwinnett had an instructor at the time, so it was easier. So I went through with 2 other Gwinnett officers to DRE school, and we had an instructor, so we could get some evals while we're working because you had to have an instructor observe it.
Got it. Okay.
And there was also 2 Lawrenceville cops going through us at the same time. So there's 5 of us. So we'd call that instructor all the time and be like, hey, dude, we got an eval. Can you come watch it? So we could all get credit. But, if other places that don't have that, it would take even longer than 7, 8, 9, 10 months. So what used to take 6 months in Georgia on a good year, for a good school, we can do in Jacksonville in 2 days.
Wow.
In less than 12 hours.
Wow.
We're bringing students. I just came back a couple weeks ago. November 8th, we came back. We brought 11 students down. They each have to do 12 evaluations each. So they all did all that in 11 hours. It's a system that's set up, so it works.
Yeah.
A lot of states go down there. I think 11 or 12 states go to Jacksonville. Most of them are from the Southeast, but there's Ohio comes down, Canada comes down.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a few. New York has been down. So different places use there's places in Pennsylvania that do this. Arizona has the 4th Ave jail, which is pretty famous if you remember Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Yeah.
So 4th Ave is his main jail. A lot of people still go there. And then California has a little setup. There's little places in between Oklahoma and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So Jacksonville's 4 hours from Gypstick.
Yeah.
So to get a students in a bunch of rental cars and zip down to Jacksonville's 4 hours. It's easy for us.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
I am a little surprised that Atlanta doesn't have.
We've tried.
Okay.
So, the hard part is, and that's what a lot of people ask is, why don't you stay local? So there's kind of is there plenty of people that are impaired by drugs and alcohol in Atlanta? 100%. One, they got to be willing. So that's step 1. Step 2 is part of that evaluation is this, there's 7 drug categories that the DRE program uses. 7 broad drug, every drug kind of falls into all 7, one of the 7. When the students are doing these 12 evaluations, in that part of the standards and protocols of the program is they have to identify at least 3 different drug categories of those 7 during those 12. So if you don't see variety, it'll be hard for them to complete it.
Right. Okay.
So if you just see cocaine or you just see heroin, everybody's going to see those drug categories, but if you don't get more variety, it's going to be hard to see that to really let them fine tune their skill.
Okay.
And meet the standards and protocols set forth that we have.
So it's a much more detailed, broader version than when we went through SFSTs.
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah.
During the academy, where they just brought in a bunch of people that wanted to get drunk for the night.
Right. That's just alcohol. That's easy, right? Yeah, we still do that all the time. And, alcohol is easy that way. But obviously, we're not giving these people drugs. We go down to it's an advocacy center for homeless and drug addicts.
Okay.
And they know when the states are in town, and they get a little bit of outreach and, counseling and some testing for other things. But they also come in and we feed them. So the first thing we do as a class when we get to Jacksonville is to check into the hotel and then we put money together and we drive to Walmart, and I'll shopping cart through Walmart, and I'll buy a bunch of food with all that money, and that's what we give them. So they'll get a Coke or a Sprite or those little Huggies, little juice boxes, and chocolate, chips, and all that kind of stuff, and we feed them. And that's, our thank you for them coming in, and they get off the street for an hour, air conditioning, and that kind of stuff. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
So
imagine what you could get if you brought in like a mobile shower.
They have, that's the interesting thing down there. There's a food kitchen nearby, so sometimes they'll come in with us and get snacks, and then go over there and get food, like a meal. There's a laundry facility for the homeless. They put in a bag and they'll get them back to them. So there's a lot of outreach areas in that. That's what that whole area is. It's right near the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium.
Okay.
There's a lot of missions, and this was a spinoff of a mission in Jacksonville.
Got it. Okay.
So that's kind of how it got bigger from there. So,
all right. I guess it's time for your dorms story at Gypstick.
So, when I left Arizona, again, I came before the family. So I came out, and that way I could get the apartment. Plus, we're in the middle of COVID now.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, school was still in session in Arizona. I think my son was doing remote, doing it from home.
Okay.
So so school was still in session. So here I was like, well, I'll go. We had already kind of picked out an apartment. I'll go sign the lease. I'll get everything turned on, which made it really difficult to get an apartment in the middle of COVID, because when you first get an apartment, you don't have anything. What do you need to get? Toilet paper.
Yeah.
Paper towels.
Yep.
Cleaning supplies. The stuff that you can't find.
Yeah.
And I was scrambling. As I drove cross country, every hotel I stayed at and every place I stopped at, I took their toilet paper, because I didn't know if I was ever going to have it again. So
forget the towels.
Yeah.
I want the toilet paper.
As cops say, I tactically acquired.
Yes.
Or I tactically acquired and repurposed the toilet paper. So I had several rolls, and so I got the Gypstick, and I got a couple days early. I wasn't going to start till Monday. Now I'm worried, if Gypstick closes, I don't have a paycheck anymore. I need to get on payroll. That's my biggest concern. I got to sign the paperwork. So Monday, I roll in on a Thursday, I think. Yeah, Thursday night. Well, I'm not an employee yet, but they'll let me stay there. They said I can stay in the barracks. That way I don't have to get a hotel, and just make it easier for me. I just had I packed my Jeep and drove cross country. So I'm not an employee, so I don't have an employee ID card yet.
Okay.
I don't get that till Monday. And that's how you get in and out of the gate after hours.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me a barracks room. So I get down to the barracks room. Well, as this day is progressing, this Thursday, that's when the state decides they're closing. So they're sending everybody home.
Oh, no.
Georgia State Patrol Academy goes home. Basic Mandate Academy goes home. Everybody goes home. So, my first night in the barracks, I'm alone in the entire barracks, in the entire training center, which is 1,100 acres.
Yeah.
And there's not another soul. And I can't leave because I don't have a key card to get back in.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is what's happening. And I'm like, I went and got a hotel the next night. I couldn't do it. So luckily that, they had a skeleton crew running on Monday, and they in-processed me and a couple other folks and got on payroll. And everybody else went home, and they're like, well, seeing you don't have any comp hours, how about you work here 7 to 7 every day, and you can build up your comp time. So I had to report to Gypstick when everybody else is working from home, and work for 12 hours in a facility that I had been there many times. I was an adjunct instructor for 5 years before I left for DRE and field sobriety and everything. So I was familiar, but not familiar with the inner workings of it.
Sure.
So now I'm in an office kind of learning what my new job is going to be with nobody else around. So it was an interesting couple months before they kicked back employees to come back in.
I would imagine so. Do they still have the inmates cooking lunches?
And one of the big things I think people think about is the inmates cook inmate lunches. They cook food for the jail, the Monroe County Jail, and the prison that's on the prison facility. That's what they cook for.
Okay.
The ladies in the back and the guys in the back, they cook the food for the cops.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the food's come a long way, actually.
It wasn't that bad when I went, but I'd always go to the short grill.
Yeah. So they have a short grill. They have a sandwich line. They have a wing line. Mainline. Oh yeah, salad bar. They sell monsters and all kinds of good stuff now. Yeah, it's gotten a little better.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's still cafeteria food, but
yeah. But that's why I went to the Short Grill. Get the burger and the fries. And then I think they had a salad bar when I went.
That just came back open because COVID, shut down salad bars everywhere. So that's just back up. But they have wings and tenders in one line, sandwiches, Short Grill, main line. Yeah. And a lot of little stuff they have out in between. Those little peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and all that kind of stuff you can buy whenever.
Okay.
It's gotten better.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't stay there.
Yeah, the funny thing is we have a police department. So I'm still technically sworn. The Gyptic has a police department.
I did not know that.
It's fictional in reality of it, and I know that kind of contradicts each other, fiction and reality, but because a lot of those guys, most of the people that work there, instructors, either retired cops, in the middle of their career, so on and so forth. So a lot of them have already started POAB and all that kind of stuff. So this allows people to carry their POAB and that kind of stuff. And they're sworn for certain aspects. It makes my job a little bit easier. And we have police cars. We don't do anything. We don't have any uniforms. But when there are students on campus, so Sunday starting at 2 p.m. to Friday at like 5 p.m., there's people there. So we have a duty officer. So it's a rotating schedule from the PD. So maybe once every other month you have to spend the night. So there's an assigned room for the duty officer in the barracks. And it's what they call a premium room. It's got a queen size bed. It's a 55-inch TV with direct TV, but it's still a barracks room, So every once in a while I got to stay there.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I end up sleeping in my office.
Okay. And I guess you're just there in 911 purposes.
I have answered I've done 2 calls for service in all the times I've been there. And one was a TV in an unoccupied room turned on at 1 a.m. Yeah.
So had to have that turned off.
So ghosts. Yeah. So the guy next door, not only did it get turned on, it got turned on at volume 99. So.
Okay.
So he called the front desk. The front desk called me. I walked down with the keys and turned it off and went back to bed. And then the other one was just an administrative call. I had to do a report they couldn't find a laptop during inventory. That was it. So that's all I've done in all the times I've worked it. So it's easy.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. It's just in case. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
CJ's, is that still there at the Holiday Inn?
CT's. Yeah, no, that the infamous CT's is gone. It's a Mexican restaurant now.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, the stripper pole's gone too. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people realize that when they're eating them, like that booth used to be a stripper pole.
Oh. Well, is the food good?
I've eaten there once.
Okay.
And it's not bad. It's a standard Georgia Mexican food. Yeah, CT's is a lot of marriages started and ended there.
That's right.
Yeah. Probably the start of some children too. Right?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still part of it's now the Red Roof. So it used to be the Holiday Inn, Holiday Inn Express.
Right.
Holiday Inn Express is still there, but the Holiday Inn became the Red Roof.
Okay.
And that's attached to that. So, to tell you the truth, and I don't know the last time you've been in Forsyth.
Long time.
It has changed. Not like overwhelming change, like holy crap, but the Walmart's now a full-size Walmart. They have a car wash. There's a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks now at that exit. They brought in a Quick Trip's going in, almost done. There's a Hampton Inn now. They built a La Quinta in that parking lot of the Days Inn. That used to be that first one where everybody used to stay.
Yeah.
In the trucker parking lot, they made a La Quinta.
Okay.
It's pretty new. The Hampton's new. Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, the Quick Trip's coming in. Moe's, Shane's Rib Shack, all kinds of new gas stations. They've ripped down a lot of that stuff and rebuilt it. A lot of restaurants downtown now. They've really revitalized Forsyth. So,
interesting.
I still don't leave campus. When I go to work, I never leave until I go home.
Yeah.
I have an office, I have a fridge. And usually my lunchtime is my downtime. Either work out if I knew I'm not going to have time later, or I just turn on YouTube and veg for a little while I eat food or go socialize. But, if I'm in the classroom, that's my only time. So I don't want to leave and have to fight the traffic coming back in.
Yeah. It's a lot of cops in there, trying to go and come back, trying to make your after lunch start time.
The weeks vary. I mean, there's there's times where there's not many people on there, and there's times where you get to the cafeteria and you're like, there's a line that's 20 minutes long. So it's it varies. It's packed or it's desolate.
Yeah, interesting. I think the longest I was there for, I want to say it was basic interviews and interrogations, and there was a game warden class going on. There was a trooper class going on. I think there was 1 or 2 correctional classes going on, and then all the other classes.
Yeah, corrections moved off site. That's one of the big things that's changed. They bought, or the state took over the college that's right there. That the college is Tift or something like that. It's
okay, yeah,
like one exit down. So they don't come into Gypstick much anymore.
Okay,
but you still have game wardens, trooper schools, motor carrier, and then now they moved. So the old Mandate Academy, the basic academy, used to be at Middle Georgia State in Macon. Now it's at Forsyth.
Oh,
so that whole end, and that's one of the things, going back there 5 years later, if you remember the cafeteria, you go to the back of Gypstick. It used to be a big day room back there.
I don't think I've ever been back there.
Oh, that's gone. Yeah, they put a wall up there, and there's now a huge classroom for Mandate.
Okay.
So Mandate basically has the second half of Gypstick, where the gym is, and over there they, for people that were there a long time ago, and if anybody's listening that was there, they used to have a barbershop, a library, and a chapel.
I didn't know any of that.
It's all gone. They're all classrooms now.
Okay.
You can still tell it was a chapel because the door is different. It looks like a church door.
Okay.
And the barbershop's now a classroom. The library's now a classroom. And the day room used to have like pool tables, vending machines, just places for people in the barracks to come and relax. And Gwinnett, and you probably did too, you came down to Gypstick to do driving.
Yeah, it was the only reason.
Yeah, and that's where we would hang out at night. We were there for a couple of days. But we
always stayed. I say we always. When I was there, we stayed at the Days Inn.
Oh yeah,
and then motored over
right
as a class.
When I went through the academy in 2004, they put us up at the barracks.
Oh, bless your heart.
I know. So that was the only time I really had to stay there until I started working there. I taught there for so long, but I'd get a spot at the Days Inn. Even DRE school, I split it with a classmate who was my best friend. He still works at Gwinnett, and we went to DRE school together. So we split a room, and it was like $20 a night each.
Yeah.
So Gwinnett wasn't going to pay for it, but I can afford $20 a night. You know what I mean? So to have a hotel. So yeah.
I think one class I ended up just commuting every day.
Mm-hmm.
It was like it was a 3-day class. I can't remember which one it was. I just felt like I'll just drive. County's paying for it. It's their car.
Yeah. Yep.
That was before we had to wear utility uniform to drive the marked cars.
Mm-hmm.
We could still wear civilian clothes off duty driving a marked patrol car.
That's funny you say that because Gypstick is as a rookie, the first class I ever took outside of the training center was Intox at Gypstick is where you have to take it. That's where it's housed out of. So I went down there. This is 2005 maybe. I hadn't been on for very long. And I stayed at a hotel near the Ingalls, not too far from Gypstick.
Okay.
So I'm at the hotel. I think it was a Super 8. And I want to go to Ingalls to get some food. But I'm out of uniform. And I'm in a marked car. And I'm scared that if I drive across the street, and I barely leave private property, that Chief Walters at the time was going to pop out of the woods and be like, "You're fired." I was so scared. I was in jeans and a T-shirt. And I could see the Ingalls. I was, because it was ingrained in you, you had to be in uniform, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I just want to get a sandwich. And I did it. I braved it and just drove across the street and drove back and sweating the whole time. Fast forward 2011 or 12 when I go to the training center and I'm going there for PT in the morning. I'm wearing shorts and a T-shirt, driving a marked car, just driving right along, not even thinking anything of it. So different culture, but it was kind of funny. Just I go that far in advance. You feel like you're a salty veteran and you're just driving in shorts and a T-shirt. My gun's over there somewhere. So
yeah. They used to. Yeah, when we did in-service training, just going. You had to be like a polo and jeans, no flip flops. I think we actually had a guy.
That's what they changed the policy, because of flip flops.
Yeah,
it was a narcotics guy.
Yeah, showed up in flip flops.
Mm-hmm.
Idiot.
Tactically unsound footwear.
Yes.
Yeah. So
although, and here's a plug. Last week I did a show with the CEO of Combat Flip Flops. So Griff, here's a plug for Combat Flip Flops. The most comfortable flip flops I have ever worn.
Sliding or the toe thing?
It's got the thong,
Yeah.
To split the toes. But West Pointer is the CEO.
Nice.
Artillery guy. And
string puller.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what he said. Yeah. And I highly recommend it. You can get Velcro morale patches to go over the top.
Okay.
And their slogan is bad for running, worse for fighting. So I put that on.
Yeah, the worst part is I don't like wearing shoes. And I like to have shoes off all the time. But those kind of flip-flops, because I'm a bigger guy, I haven't found a pair ever that are comfortable with the thing between my toes.
Try them.
Other than that, I can wear slides, but they're not. I drive a stick, so you can't wear slides driving a stick. It just doesn't work.
No, not well.
Not well at all. Yeah, you can probably do it once, so that I just don't. So when I have to drive, I have to wear shoes. So kind of.
Right. Well, combatflipflops.com.
I'll try them.
Yeah, you should. So Griff, there you go. Free plug. Excuse me. So 2 hours in.
I think we scratched it, huh?
Yeah. We got you across the pond into the desert. We brought you home.
Mm-hmm.
Got you started at Gwinnett. Sent you back over the pond. Then brought you home. Got you to Arizona, to another desert.
Almost as hot.
Mm-hmm. And then we got you back here to Green. I feel like we've sort of completed this circuit.
I think we have.
Any last comedic story? Anything with some comedy in it, whether it's as an FTO, as a sergeant. I tell you, funniest thing that you've had to discipline somebody for.
I've been very fortunate. The only person I had to discipline was report writing. Horrible report writing.
Okay.
Just couldn't grasp the concepts. So I was really lucky as a supervisor because I only spent a year on patrol and then I went to the DUI unit and they're all self-go-getters.
Yeah.
Somebody actually asked a story on FTO thing and a fellow officer, she was in Florida and she was asking for FTO stories because she was doing a podcast of like some of the funnier things. And it made me think of, I was in West Side, I was FTOing, I was at a Quick Trip in the nicer part, Peachtree Parkway, Peachtree Corners area.
Yeah.
There's a Quick Trip next to the Forum, the shopping center. And we're going into the Quick Trip, but we ended up going out on a car of a bunch of people. And as we're getting out of the car, somebody jumps into a car. People are screaming, almost hits my patrol car, and then takes off. So I got a rookie with me. It's his car, and I still have a lot of people. And I looked at him, and for whatever reason, in my brain, I knew it probably was the dumbest thing I should have said was like, go get him. So he's on field training. He's not solo.
Oh.
And what does he do?
He goes and gets him?
He jumps in the patrol car to go get him. So now he's sort of in a pursuit. He's trying to catch up to this guy, which is not authorized in Gwinnett.
Correct.
And now he's alone, which is also not authorized. And I also realized that I'm also alone. I don't have a car. So it's just me. So it's kind of and I was like, I called him on the radio pretty quickly and I was like, 59, be back here. So it was one of those hot, when you get into those, in that mode, you kind of get a little bit of tunnel vision, the things they teach you not to do. And I did it. And luckily nothing bad happened. He didn't crash or, pit the guy or something like that. But yeah, that was one of those moments. It was like, so lucky something bad didn't happen.
You brought up pit, and this will be the last story, and we can say our goodbyes. When I was at Houston, we had a no pit policy, but we could ram.
Interesting.
Yes. Mm. Yeah. When I was at Winder, they still had warning shots that you could fire one up into the air.
Nice.
Yeah.
They forgot about the old physics, laws of physics.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not going to hit much in Winder. At least back then, maybe.
Well, it's pretty populated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, the city itself is pretty populated.
Yeah, the downtown area definitely is. Yeah.
I just thought I'd and this is 2000s.
Old school stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I think I'm fortunate about the job I have now is I travel a lot. Teaching, field sobriety, A-Ride. DRE is all done in-house, but I do a lot of presenting at requests and do different things. And it brings me to parts of the state of Georgia that I think a lot of cops, especially in the metro area, don't realize how good they have it.
Yeah.
And that, I go to places like Waycross and, Helena and, just counties you didn't even know existed. Thomasville, which is somewhat populated.
Yeah.
But in Thomasville, you got to go to Tallahassee to do anything. That's the closest place. It's you get to these places and it's you blink and you're through the town.
Yes. Yeah. About Lake Houston.
Like Houston. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So. About Lake Houston. All right. Well, 2 hours and 2 minutes in. Something like that. This has been episode number 14, ladies and gentlemen. And Mike, thanks for making the trip coming up. If you ever want to come back and do another one, we can dive deeper into some of those stories. Keep collecting them.
I will.
Yeah. And for our sponsor, avboa.net, that's the American Veteran Business Owners Alliance. Check them out at avboa.net. They offer digital badges for your website, your social media, and also creating a database of other veteran-owned businesses, so that people can find us and hire us to do whatever it is they need us to do. So take a look at avboa.net. I am your host, Patrick Faulkner. Episode 14 is now in the books. Mike, thanks, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We'll see you again.